Lyra Ashwood, I reject you as my mate.
I accept your rejection, Alpha Rowan. I'll find my own way, even in the dark. I will not let this break me.
The first thing I heard wasn't my alpha's voice. It was the sound of my own heart breaking. Thousands of wolves surrounded the Moonstone Arena, waiting for the annual mating ceremony to begin. Silver banners fluttered beneath the full moon while torches painted the ancient stone walls in warm gold. The air smelled of cedar, rain, and wildflowers. Tonight was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night everyone would remember for the wrong reason. I stood in the center of the arena, my hands trembling as Alpha Rowan Blackthorn walked toward me. Every step he took echoed through the silence. His dark suit marked him as the future ruler of our pack, and the moon mark glowing faintly on his neck reminded everyone that the moon goddess had already chosen his destined mate. Me. Our eyes met. For one impossible second, I believed everything would be fine. Then he stopped only a few feet away. His face was colder than winter. My answer is no. The words struck harder than any blade. The crowd gasped. I stared at him, certain I had misunderstood. What did you say? He didn't hesitate. I reject you, Lyra Ashwood. A sharp pain exploded deep inside my chest. It felt as though invisible claws were tearing my soul apart. Whispers spread through the arena like wildfire. He rejected his fated mate. Before everyone? Has that ever happened? I couldn't hear anything clearly anymore. My ears rang. My wolf cried out inside me, wounded by the bond being ripped apart. I searched Rowan's face, desperate to find some sign that this was a cruel joke. There was nothing. Only distance. Only certainty. I won't allow a weak healer to become my Luna, he continued, loud enough for every wolf present to hear. My pack deserves someone stronger. Each sentence landed like another stone tied around my heart. Around us, elders lowered their eyes. Some warriors looked uncomfortable. Others watched with open curiosity. Not one person stepped forward. Not one. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Have I ever failed this pack? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past me, almost as though I had already disappeared. You've always done your duty, he finally admitted. But duty isn't enough. The silence that followed hurt more than the rejection itself. I remembered every wound I had healed, every sleepless night, every child I had saved, every elderly wolf I had comforted. None of it mattered now, because the man I loved had decided it wasn't enough. A woman stepped beside him, Celine, beautiful, confident, draped in crimson. She slipped her hand into Rowan's without hesitation. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't simply rejection. He had already chosen someone else. A few wolves applauded. Others remained frozen in disbelief. I felt hundreds of eyes studying my face, waiting for me to cry, waiting for me to collapse, waiting for me to beg. Instead, I straightened my shoulders. If this was the last moment they would ever see me as Rowan's mate, I refused to let it become the last moment they remembered me with pity. I lifted my chin. If rejecting me gives you peace, I said, my voice shaking only once, then I accept your decision. Confusion swept through the crowd. That wasn't a reaction anyone expected. Rowan frowned for the first time all evening. Perhaps he had expected tears. Perhaps he wanted anger. Instead, I gave him neither. I gave him silence. I reached for the moonstone pendant resting against my chest. It had belonged to my mother. She used to tell me something whenever life became difficult. Never chase anyone who willingly walks away from you. My fingers tightened around the pendant. She had been right. I slowly removed the ceremonial Luna bracelet from my wrist. Every future Luna received one before the mating ceremony. Its silver surface reflected the moonlight one final time before I placed it carefully on the stone floor between Rowan and me. I won't wear something I haven't earned, I whispered. The arena fell completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop.
Then, clap.
One pair of hands broke the silence. Everyone turned. At the top of the marble staircase stood another man. He looked exactly like Rowan. The same height, the same black hair, the same piercing gray eyes. But unlike Rowan, warmth lived in his expression. Alpha Ronan Blackthorn, Rowan's identical twin. The brother who had spent years leading the Northern Pack after refusing to compete for their father's throne. No one had expected him tonight. He descended the stairs without rushing. Every wolf instinctively moved aside. Even Rowan stiffened. "What are you doing here?" Rowan asked. Ronan ignored him. His gaze never left mine. For reasons I couldn't explain, I felt strangely calm beneath those watchful eyes. Not because I knew him, because I didn't. We had spoken only a handful of times over the years. Yet somehow, his presence quieted the storm inside me. He stopped beside the silver bracelet lying on the ground. Then he bent down and picked it up. A murmur swept through the arena. Rowan's voice hardened. "Put that back." Ronan examined the bracelet for a moment before looking at his brother. "You discarded something precious." "It was my choice." "It was." Ronan nodded once. "And now this is mine." Every elder rose from their seats. Celine's confident smile vanished. "What do you mean?" Rowan demanded. Ronan stepped closer to me, close enough that only I could hear his next words. "You don't have to face this alone." I stared at him. Why would he help me? He barely knew me. Before I could ask, a sudden burst of silver light erupted beneath our feet. The ancient moonstone circle began to glow. Runes carved centuries ago illuminated one after another. Gasps echoed through the arena. The elders looked horrified. "No," one of them whispered. "That symbol hasn't appeared in generations." The light surrounded Ronan and me. Heat spread across my wrist. I looked down. A silver crescent-shaped mark was slowly appearing on my skin. Impossible. The moon goddess had already chosen Rowan. Hadn't she? The high elder stumbled forward, his face pale. This cannot be." Ronan looked at the glowing mark before lifting his eyes to mine. For the first time all night, I saw certainty instead of doubt. Then he turned toward the entire pack and spoke 7 words that changed my life forever. "If my brother rejects his destiny, I claim mine." The arena exploded into chaos. The arena dissolved into chaos. Voices crashed together until I could no longer separate one from another. The moon's circle awakened. "That's impossible. Look at her wrist." I stared at the silver crescent glowing against my skin. It pulsed like a second heartbeat, warm but not painful. "What is happening?" I whispered. No one answered. Even the high elder looked shaken. Alpha Rowan's expression had changed completely. The certainty that filled his eyes only moments ago was gone, replaced by something far more unsettling.
Fear.
Not for himself. For what he'd just witnessed. Ronan remained beside me, calm despite the panic spreading through the crowd. He didn't reach for me or try to guide me away. He simply stood close enough that I knew I wasn't facing the storm alone. The high elder raised his staff. Silence. The command rolled across the arena. Gradually, the murmurs faded. The old wolf descended the stone steps, stopping before Ronan and me. His weathered fingers hovered above the glowing mark on my wrist, but never touched it. I prayed I would never see this sign again. "What sign?" Rowan demanded. The elder lifted his gaze. "The moon has refused your rejection." A stunned silence followed. Rowan frowned. "Refuse? The moon goddess grants free will," the elder said evenly. "But there are moments when truth survives even the choices of mortals." Celine stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You're saying Rowan's rejection didn't matter?" "I'm saying," the elder replied, "that we do not yet understand what has awakened." My pulse quickened. Nothing made sense anymore. Only minutes ago, I had accepted that my future had ended. Now everyone was looking at me as though I carried a mystery no one could explain. Ronan finally spoke. "Then the ceremony is over." "No," Rowan answered immediately. Every eye shifted toward him. His jaw tightened. "She belongs to the Shadow Pack." The words stopped me cold. Belongs? I slowly faced him. For the first time that night, Anger outweighed heartbreak. I never belonged to anyone. The arena fell quiet again. Rowan opened his mouth but said nothing. Perhaps he finally heard how those words sounded. Perhaps he realized too late that the woman he'd rejected was still standing with her dignity intact. The High Elder looked between the brothers. This matter cannot be settled tonight. It will be settled now, Rowan insisted. Ronan's voice remained measured. You're angry. I'm protecting my pack.
No.
Ronan met his brother's glare, without flinching. You're protecting your pride. The sentence landed harder than any shout. Several warriors lowered their eyes. They knew he was right. Rowan had expected me to leave quietly. He had not expected the moon's circle to awaken. He certainly hadn't expected his own twin to stand beside me. A horn echoed from beyond the western gate. One blast, then another. A scout sprinted into the arena, covered in dust. Alpha. Everyone turned. The young warrior dropped to one knee. Rogue wolves crossed the northern border. A wave of unease swept through the crowd. They're moving fast, the scout continued. Too fast to be a random attack. Ronan's expression sharpened. How many? We counted dozens. Another guard hurried into the arena before anyone could respond. They're asking for someone. For whom? Rowan asked. The guard hesitated. Then he looked directly at me. They said.
His voice caught.
They said they came for the moon mark. Every instinct inside me screamed that this was no coincidence. The mark on my wrist grew warmer. Not burning. Calling. Somewhere beyond the arena walls, something, or someone, already knew it had awakened. Ronan stepped slightly in front of me. Not possessively. Protectively. If they want her, he said quietly, they'll have to come through me. The rogue horn sounded again. Closer this time. Much closer. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I had the terrifying feeling that tonight's rejection had never been the real beginning of my story. It had only opened the first door. The cold northern wind brushed against my face as Ronan's carriage crossed the stone bridge, leading into his territory. I expected suspicious eyes. Whispers. Judgment. After all, I was the Luna rejected before thousands only 2 days ago. The entire werewolf world knew my humiliation. Instead, the gates slowly opened. 2 lines of warriors stood at attention, not with their weapons raised, but with their fists pressed against their hearts. A sign of respect. I looked at Ronan in confusion. You didn't tell them who I was. I told them exactly who you are. And who is that? He smiled without looking at me. A guest under my protection. The words settled somewhere deep inside me. Not rejected Luna. Not broken mate. Not burden. Simply,
a guest.
The carriage rolled through the capital of the Northern Pack. Everything felt different. The streets were alive with merchants laughing together. Children chased each other through flower-covered courtyards. Music drifted from open windows. There was strength here, but it wasn't built on fear. People smiled at their alpha. And when Ronan smiled back, they smiled even wider. I couldn't remember ever seeing Rowan smile at ordinary pack members. Shadow Pack respected its alpha. Northern Pack loved theirs. There was a difference. A huge difference. The carriage stopped before an enormous silver castle built into the mountainside. Waterfalls surrounded its walls. White wolves carved from marble guarded the entrance. It looked less like a fortress, and more like a home. Ronan stepped down first. Then he offered me his hand. I hesitated. He noticed immediately. You don't have to. You keep giving me choices. Because they're yours. Such a simple answer. Yet it felt unfamiliar. I accepted his hand.
Warm.
Steady. Gentle. Not possessive. He helped me down without pulling me closer. Without trying to prove anything. Just helping. As soon as we entered the castle, dozens of servants bowed. My alpha. Then they turned toward me. One older woman stepped forward carrying fresh flowers. Welcome home. I blinked. You've mistaken me for someone else. She laughed softly.
No.
You've traveled far. Every tired traveler deserves to hear those words. Something tightened painfully inside my chest. How many years had I spent trying to earn kindness? Yet here, they offered it freely. Later that afternoon, I wandered through the castle gardens alone. They were breathtaking. Silver roses climbed ancient stone arches. Moon lilies floated across crystal ponds. The scent of pine filled the air. For the first time in days, my breathing slowed. Maybe healing wasn't impossible after all. A cry interrupted my thoughts. Someone was shouting for help. I ran toward the sound. Near the training grounds, a young warrior lay on the ground clutching his shoulder. Blood soaked through his uniform. Around him, several wolves looked panicked. The healer won't arrive in time. The poison is spreading. Without thinking, I knelt beside him. My name is Lyra. I'm a healer. The warrior looked doubtful. Please. My arm. I examined the wound. A rogue blade. Coated with venom. Dangerous. But not impossible. I reached into my satchel. The herbs I'd carried since leaving Shadowpack were still there. Crushing leaves between my fingers, I mixed them with healing powder. Then I placed my glowing hands over the wound. The familiar warmth spread through my palms. Golden light surrounded us. The poison stopped moving. Gasps erupted behind me. Slowly, the torn flesh closed. The warrior flexed a shoulder. No pain. No blood. Nothing remained except a faint scar. Silence. Then applause. Real applause. I looked around in surprise. The gathered warriors weren't staring with suspicion. They were smiling. One older captain stepped forward. Our alpha spoke highly of you. I thought he was being polite. I was wrong. He bowed. Thank you. No one had ever thanked me like that. Not because they had to.
Because they wanted to.
Word spread quickly. By sunset, half the castle seemed to know about the healer who cured poisoned wounds. Children began peeking around corners whenever I walked by. At dinner, 3 little girls approached my table. One held out a tiny flower crown. For you. I laughed softly. Why? Because heroes should wear crowns. I am definitely not a hero. The youngest shook her head. You made Uncle Finn smile. He hasn't smiled since he got hurt. The innocent honesty nearly broke me. I accepted the flower crown. Thank you. The girls giggled before running away. Across the hall, I noticed Ronan watching quietly. No smug smile. No, I told you so. Only quiet satisfaction. As if seeing me smile mattered. More than anything else. That evening, we stood together on a balcony, overlooking the mountains. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. The silence wasn't awkward, just peaceful. Finally, I asked the question that had haunted me all day. Why are you doing this? Ronan leaned against the railing. Doing what? Being kind. He frowned. Is kindness unusual? I laughed bitterly. For me? Yes. He was silent for a long moment. Then he looked directly into my eyes. My brother rejected you. I won't pretend that never happened. But I refuse to let his choice define how you're treated here. I swallowed hard. You don't even know me. I know enough. What do you know? I know someone who sacrifices herself to heal strangers isn't weak. I know someone who refuses to humiliate others after being humiliated herself has strength. And he hesitated. I know your eyes stopped shining long before Rowan rejected you. My breath caught. He had noticed. No one had ever noticed. Not even me. I should probably leave soon. The words escaped before I could stop them. Ronan nodded. If that's what you want. You are going to convince me to stay?
No.
Why not? Because I don't want gratitude. I don't want obligation. I don't even want destiny. He smiled gently. I want honesty. He stepped toward the doorway, then paused. Stay because you choose to. Leave because you choose to. But whatever you decide, no one here will make that decision for you. He disappeared inside, leaving me alone beneath the moonlight. My wolf stirred quietly, not with longing, with peace. Much later, sleep refused to come. The castle felt strangely alive after midnight. Soft echoes drifted through the ancient halls. I wrapped a cloak around my shoulders and began walking. The corridors were empty. Moonlight spilled through stained glass windows.
Then,
I heard voices. barely whispers. She's returned. After all these centuries. The Moon Queen. I froze. Who's there? Silence. Only the wind answered. Then another whisper. Follow. A strange pull settled inside my chest. Almost instinctive. Without understanding why, I followed the sound. Down twisting staircases. Past forgotten hallways. Toward the oldest section of the castle. The whispers grew stronger. The air. The blood remembers. My heartbeat thundered. I reached a stone wall. Dead end. The voices stopped. Confused, I touched the cold surface. The moon mark on my wrist suddenly burned. Silver light exploded across the stones. Ancient symbols appeared. A deep rumble echoed beneath my feet. The wall slowly split apart. Dust filled the air. A hidden passage. No one had opened it for centuries. I stepped inside carefully. The chamber beyond was enormous. Rows of forgotten books lined the walls. Ancient weapons rested beneath glass. Broken crowns. Silver banners. Everything was covered in dust. At the center stood a massive portrait. I stared. The woman inside wore flowing white robes. A silver crown rested upon her head. Golden eyes. Dark hair. The exact same moon mark glowed on her wrist. She looked exactly like me. My breathing stopped. Impossible. Footsteps echoed behind me. I turned sharply. High Elder Magnus stood silently in the doorway. His expression wasn't surprised. It was relieved. He looked at the portrait, then back at me. Finally, he whispered the words that sent chills through my entire body. I was beginning to fear history had forgotten its rightful queen. Lyra discovers a hidden chamber beneath the northern castle containing an ancient portrait identical to her, while High Elder Magnus reveals that her arrival may fulfill an ancient prophecy tied to the lost Moon Queen. The old chamber fell silent. High Elder Magnus stood in the doorway with his hands folded behind his back, his silver robes brushing the stone floor. I looked from him to the portrait again. The woman seemed almost alive. The longer I stared into her golden eyes, the more familiar they felt. She wasn't simply someone who looked like me. She felt like family. My voice barely escaped. Who is she? Magnus walked slowly toward the painting. Dust rose beneath each careful step. He gently brushed centuries of dust from the gilded frame. The first Moon Queen. A cold shiver raced through me. The Moon Queen isn't a legend?
No.
She was the first ruler chosen directly by the Moon Goddess. I stared again. Why does she look exactly like me? Magnus remained quiet for several seconds. That answer has waited over 500 years. Before I could ask another question, footsteps echoed behind us. Ronan entered the chamber. His calm expression disappeared the moment he saw the portrait. You found it. Magnus nodded. It revealed itself. Ronan looked at me with quiet concern. You touched the wall? Yes. The moon mark reacted. Magnus sighed softly. Just as the prophecy foretold. The word prophecy made my stomach tighten. I don't want prophecies. I've had enough people deciding my future. Ronan immediately spoke. No one will force anything. His voice carried no hesitation. No prophecy decides who you become. You do. For some reason, those words meant more than I expected. The next morning, the castle buzzed with excitement. No one outside the hidden chamber knew what had happened. To everyone else, life continued normally. Children laughed in the gardens. Warriors trained in the courtyard. Merchants filled the streets. I welcomed the normalcy. After everything that had happened, I desperately needed ordinary. While helping prepare herbs in the castle infirmary, I noticed people greeting me with genuine warmth. Good morning, Lady Lyra. Thank you again for helping my brother. My daughter says she wants to become a healer because of you. Each smile felt unfamiliar, not because it was forced, because it wasn't. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Shadow Pack was anything but peaceful. Rowan hadn't slept. Not since the rejection ceremony. His wolf had refused to settle. Something inside him felt
Wrong.
not guilt. Not yet. Something deeper. As if the bond he'd rejected had never truly broken. He stood inside his private study, staring at the ceremonial rejection scroll. The official document declared that Lyra Ashwood had willingly hidden information from the Alpha and betrayed the pack. Every accusation had sounded convincing that day.
Now,
They felt strangely hollow. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Enter. His beta, Garrick, stepped inside carrying several ancient records. My Alpha. I found something. Rowan looked up. What is it? Garrick placed several documents across the desk. I compared every report concerning Lyra over the last 3 years. And they don't match. Rowan frowned. What do you mean? The reports praising her handwriting are different. The reports accusing her, they were written by someone else. Rowan picked up the papers. His eyes narrowed. The signatures looked identical, but the handwriting wasn't. His heartbeat quickened. Bring me every original report. By noon, his office looked like a battlefield. Scrolls covered every table. Letters filled the floor. Official records lay stacked against the walls. Hour after hour, Rowan examined every document himself. Patterns slowly emerged. Medical records had disappeared. Training reports had been altered. Witness statements had changed dates. Had rewritten history. His breathing became heavier. No. His voice sounded distant. No. Garrick carefully approached. My Alpha? Rowan held up 2 identical letters. Look. They're supposed to be the same document. They're not. One praised Lyra's loyalty. The other called her manipulative. Only one could be genuine. Rowan suddenly remembered something. The day before the mating ceremony, Celine had personally delivered several confidential reports. He had trusted her. Without question, a knot formed in his chest. That afternoon, Rowan walked through the castle library alone. His mind replayed countless memories. Lyra quietly healing injured warriors. Lyra staying late to care for orphaned pups. Lyra refusing recognition. Had any of it been fake?
no.
He realized something horrifying. She had never once asked him for power. Never chased status. Never demanded attention. If anything, she constantly avoided it. Then why had he believed otherwise? Because someone had convinced him. Someone he trusted. Without another thought, he marched toward Celine's private chambers. The guards opened the doors immediately. Celine looked up from her tea with a pleasant smile. Rowan, I wasn't expecting you. He closed the door behind him. His face remained unreadable. I have questions. She laughed softly. You sound serious. I am. She poured another cup. Sit with me. I'd rather stand. Her smile faded slightly. What happened? Rowan placed several forged letters on the table. Explain these. She glanced down only briefly before looking back up. They're official reports. They're forged. She blinked. Forged? Impossible. I checked the records myself. So did I. She leaned forward. Then someone must have deceived us both. Her answer came too quickly.
Too smoothly.
Rowan watched every tiny movement. Every blink. Every breath. She showed no fear. Only concern. Almost convincing. You really think Lyra was innocent? Celine asked quietly. What if she's manipulating Ronan now? What if this was her plan all along? For a moment, old doubts resurfaced. Then Rowan remembered Lyra's face during the ceremony. She hadn't begged, hadn't defended herself. She had simply accepted the pain. Not like someone caught in a lie, like someone whose heart had shattered. He looked back at Celine. You knew I trusted you. I still do. She smiled gently. I'm only trying to protect you. Rowan nodded once, then turned toward the door. I hope that's true. As the door closed, Celine's smile slowly disappeared. That evening, hidden beneath the castle, a cloaked figure entered the royal archives. The figure carried a small torch. Without hesitation, he unlocked a hidden cabinet. Inside rested dozens of ancient scrolls sealed with royal wax. He grabbed them all. Before leaving, he poured oil across the shelves. Moments later, flames erupted. The archives burned. The alarm bells rang across Shadowpack. Rowan rushed toward the smoke. Guards formed lines carrying buckets of water. Everyone fought the fire. Hours later, the flames were finally extinguished. Half the archives had been destroyed. The royal historian approached Rowan with ash covering his face. My alpha. Someone targeted only one section. What section? The Moon bloodline records. Rowan froze. Only those. The historian nodded. They ignored everything else. Rowan's pulse quickened. Someone wasn't simply hiding evidence against Lyra anymore. They were erasing history. Late that night, Garrick returned once more. This time, he looked pale. I found something before the fire. He handed Rowan a small leather journal. It belonged to the former royal archivist. Rowan opened it carefully. Most pages described ordinary events. Then, one final entry caught his eye. If anything happens to me, trust Lyra Ashwood. She carries the oldest blood. Someone inside the castle wants the truth buried forever. Rowan read the words again. Then again. His hands trembled. His wolf let out a long, painful howl inside him. Everything suddenly fit together. The forged reports, the missing records, the stolen bloodline scrolls, the fire, the rejection. He had condemned an innocent woman, not because she betrayed him, because he had failed to question the lies. For the first time since becoming alpha, Rowan dropped to one knee, not before an enemy, not before a king, but beneath the crushing weight of his own mistake. His voice broke into the empty room. Lyra, I'm so sorry. Far to the north, at that exact moment, I stood beneath the moon outside Ronan's castle. For reasons I couldn't explain, a strange ache passed through the fading remains of my broken mate bond. Then it disappeared, like the final thread had finally snapped. I closed my eyes, not knowing that the man who had broken my heart had finally discovered the truth. But the truth had come far too late. As Rowan realizes he rejected an innocent woman because of a carefully orchestrated conspiracy, a mysterious thief destroys the Moon bloodline archives to erase Lyra's true heritage. Rowan now knows he must find Lyra, but he has no idea that far greater enemies are already moving against her. The portrait refused to leave my thoughts. Even after 3 days, I still saw the Moon Queen's face every time I closed my eyes. Her golden eyes. Her gentle smile, the glowing mark on her wrist. Every detail mirrored my own. I had spent my entire life believing I was an ordinary healer. Now, an ancient portrait and a forgotten prophecy were trying to tell me otherwise. I wasn't ready to believe either of them. Morning sunlight spilled through my bedroom window. For the first time in weeks, I had slept peacefully. No nightmares. No echoes of Rowan's rejection. No voices whispering that I wasn't enough. Just silence. A welcome silence. Someone knocked gently. Come in. The door opened, and Ronan stepped inside carrying a tray with breakfast. I laughed softly. The alpha serves breakfast himself? He smiled. The kitchen insisted on helping. They're worried you keep skipping meals. I looked away, embarrassed. I wasn't hungry. I know. He placed the tray on the table, which is exactly why I brought it. His calm persistence made it impossible to argue. I sat beside the window and picked up a piece of warm bread. Only then did he seem satisfied. You've been avoiding the hidden chamber, Ronan observed. I have. Why? I stared out at the mountains. Because every time I go there, someone tells me who they think I am. The Moon Queen's heir. The chosen one. The answer to an ancient prophecy. I shook my head. I don't want to become another title. I've spent years trying to survive beneath other people's expectations. I finally escaped them. I don't want new ones. Ronan remained quiet for a moment. Then he said the words I had come to expect from him. Then don't. I looked at him. If you choose to remain a healer, I'll support that. If you choose to walk away from every throne in existence, I'll open the gates myself. He smiled. I'll even pack your bags. I laughed despite myself. You would. I would. Because I'd rather see you free than trapped beside me. Something warm settled inside my chest. Every day, he reminded me that love wasn't possession.
It was respect.
Later that afternoon, High Elder Magnus requested to see us in the ancient chamber. This time, several old scrolls rested on a stone table beneath the portrait. Magnus carefully unrolled the oldest one. Its parchment had turned almost silver with age. This record predates every modern kingdom. His voice echoed softly. It tells the story of the first Moon Queen. He pointed toward the portrait. Her name was Queen Lyra. I looked up at the painting again. Even now, it felt as though she were watching me. 500 years ago, Magnus continued, the werewolf clans nearly destroyed one another. Greed divided them. Pride blinded them. War consumed everything. I listened quietly. Then the moon goddess chose one woman to unite them. Not because she was the strongest. Not because she was royalty. But because she placed compassion above power. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. That sounded nothing like the rulers I had known. Magnus unrolled another scroll. Queen Lyra refused every crown offered to her. I blinked. She did. He nodded. 3 times. Only after she realized refusing leadership would allow war to continue did she finally accept. He looked directly at me. Power never interested her. Protecting people did. I immediately understood why he was telling me this.
No.
I stepped back. Don't compare me to her. I'm not a queen. I'm a healer. Magnus smiled gently. I know. That's precisely why the prophecy speaks of you. I shook my head. Prophecies don't make someone worthy. They certainly don't make me a ruler. Ronan quietly stepped beside me. No one is asking you to decide today. Magnus nodded. The throne has waited centuries. It can wait a little longer. I let out a slow breath. Grateful. Again, no one demanded answers. No one pressured me. Maybe that was why I stayed. Days passed peacefully. I spent most of my time in the infirmary. Healing had always been where my heart belonged. Children visited almost daily. One little boy proudly showed me a wooden wolf he had carved. Another insisted I judge a race between him and his sister. An elderly woman brought me fresh herbs because they reminded her of her late daughter. Bit by bit, the emptiness Rowan had left behind began filling with something else. Not another mate. Not another destiny. A family. One I hadn't expected to find. That evening, Ronan invited me to walk through the western gardens. The sky burned with shades of orange and gold as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. You seem happier, he said. I think I am. You deserve that. I smiled. I used to think happiness had to be earned. And now I'm beginning to think it should simply be shared. He nodded thoughtfully. My mother used to say the same thing. You miss her. Every day. There was sadness in his eyes. Not hidden. Not denied. Simply accepted. I admired that. As we reached the center of the gardens, I noticed a massive stone platform covered in vines. What is this? Ronan brushed away several leaves. Beneath them rested ancient silver symbols. The moon throne. I frowned. This is a throne? It once stood inside the old royal palace. When the kingdoms fell, my ancestors hid it beneath this castle. I stared at the weathered stone seat.
It looked ordinary.
Almost forgotten. People believe only the true heir can awaken it. I laughed softly. Then I suppose we'll never know. I reached out and lightly touched the armrest. The moment my fingers made contact, the entire platform trembled. A low hum echoed through the garden. Silver light burst from the symbols carved into the stone. The vines withered instantly. Moonlight poured from the throne, even though the sun had not fully set. The air became strangely warm. Behind us, warriors stopped what they were doing. Servants dropped baskets. Children pointed toward the glowing platform. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. I immediately stepped back. I didn't do anything. No one answered. The throne continued shining. Not violently. Almost
Joyfully.
Magnus, who had been walking toward the gardens, stopped in complete disbelief. His voice barely rose above a whisper. After 5 centuries, it recognizes its queen. No. The word escaped before anyone else could speak. I refuse. Everyone looked at me. I don't want a throne. I don't want crowns. I don't want kingdoms. The silver light slowly faded. The throne became silent once more. Magnus smiled. There it is. I frowned.
What?
The final sign. What sign? He looked toward Ronan. The throne only awakens for someone who doesn't seek it. I closed my eyes. This can't be happening. Ronan gently touched my shoulder. It doesn't have to happen today. Or tomorrow. Or next month. You have time. Always time. Always choice. I opened my eyes again. Promise me something. Anything. If I ever become someone I don't recognize, if power changes me, I want you to remind me who I used to be. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked straight into my eyes. I promise. And if you never choose that throne, I'll still be proud of the healer who changed this kingdom long before she changed its future. My heart skipped, not because of destiny, because I believed him. Far away, inside Shadow Pack, Rowan stood before the burned remains of the royal archives. The smell of smoke still lingered. Garrick approached quickly. My alpha. We found tracks. Whose? The thief escaped through the eastern tunnels. Was anything recovered? Garrick handed him a small metal seal. Rowan examined it closely. A black crescent moon surrounded by a serpent. I've never seen this crest. The historian has. Garrick's expression darkened. He says it belonged to an ancient organization. What organization? The Obsidian Council. Rowan frowned. I thought they disappeared centuries ago. So did everyone else. Both men fell silent. If the Obsidian Council truly still existed, then Lyra was in far greater danger than either of them had imagined. And somewhere in the shadows, hidden eyes continued watching the woman whose very existence threatened centuries of carefully buried secrets. The ancient moon throne awakens the instant Lyra touches it, confirming that her bloodline is real. But while she refuses the crown, Rowan uncovers evidence that the long-forgotten Obsidian Council is still alive, and they are already hunting the last descendant of the Moon Queen. The Moon Throne had been silent for 3 days. Not once had it glowed again. The castle slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but nothing truly felt the same. Every servant who passed me bowed a little deeper. The warriors looked at me with quiet admiration. Even the children had started calling me Princess Moon. I laughed every time I heard it. I'm not a princess. The little girl who had made me a flower crown crossed her tiny arms. You'll always be Lady Lyra to us. I smiled. And that's more than enough. I spent my mornings in the infirmary. Healing had become more than my gift. It had become my refuge. An elderly warrior arrived with a badly injured hand after helping repair the Eastern Watchtower. As I wrapped the wound, he watched me carefully. My lady. I'm not a lady. You healed my grandson. I only did what anyone would. He chuckled.
No.
They wouldn't. You stayed beside him all night. You never left until his fever broke. I hadn't expected anyone to remember that. I couldn't leave him. He smiled warmly. Exactly. Before leaving, he bowed. Thank you not for healing us. For reminding this kingdom that kindness still exists. His words stayed with me long after he was gone. That afternoon, the castle courtyard overflowed with laughter. The children had convinced Ronan to join a game of tag. To my surprise, the mighty alpha of the Northern Pack was currently losing. A little boy darted between his legs, laughing so hard he nearly fell over. You missed me. Ronan laughed. I was distracted. No, you've become slow. The children burst into giggles. Watching them together made something inside me soften. I had never seen an alpha behave this way. Rowan had always carried the weight of leadership. Every smile had seemed carefully measured. Ronan carried responsibility too, but somehow, he still made room for joy. One of the children spotted me. Lady Lyra, help Alpha Ronan. He keeps losing. I heard that, Ronan called, pretending to sound offended. I couldn't help laughing. For the first time in what felt like forever, the sound came naturally, not forced, not polite, real. Ronan looked toward me. His eyes brightened. Seeing me happy seemed to make him happier. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. That evening, a guard approached while I organized herbs. "My lady, there's a visitor." I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. The guard hesitated. Neither were we. He arrived alone. My stomach tightened. "Who is it?" The answer came quietly. "Alpha Rowan." The room became completely silent. Every memory I had buried rushed back at once.
The ceremony.
The rejection. The whispers. The bracelet falling from my wrist. For one brief moment, I couldn't breathe. Ronan appeared beside me almost instantly. "You don't have to see him." "I know. If you want him turned away, he'll leave."
Again. A choice.
Always a choice. I closed my eyes.
No.
"I'll speak with him, but only because I choose to." Ronan nodded. "I'll be nearby." Rowan stood alone in the castle's reception hall. He looked different. His shoulders were heavier. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes. The proud alpha who had stood before thousands now looked like a man carrying an unbearable weight. When he saw me, he took one hesitant step forward, then stopped. "I almost didn't come." I folded my hands together. "Why did you?" He lowered his gaze. "Because the truth finally found me." Silence stretched between us. Finally,
He spoke again.
"I know you were innocent." I didn't answer. I know the reports were forged. Still, I remained silent. "I know someone manipulated me." His voice cracked, and I believed them. For the first time since I'd met him, Rowan looked afraid. Not of losing power, not of another alpha. Afraid of the consequences of his own choices. He swallowed hard. "I came to apologize. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it." His words echoed softly through the hall. "I should have trusted what I saw, not what others told me. I watched you care for my people. I watched you sacrifice for the pack. And somehow, I convinced myself you were pretending." His hands trembled. "I failed you. I failed our bond. I failed as your alpha. And I failed as a man." The sincerity in his voice surprised me. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't making excuses. He simply accepted responsibility. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I found my voice. "Do you remember the night your mother became ill?" He blinked. "Yes. I stayed beside her for 4 days." "You did. You thanked every healer. Except me." His expression fell. "I know. Do you remember the orphan twins?" He nodded slowly. "I found them hiding outside the border. I raised them until another family adopted them." "You never knew." Rowan closed his eyes. "I know. My beta told me everything." I looked directly at him. "The hardest part wasn't that you rejected me. It was realizing you never truly saw me." His shoulders slumped. "I see that now. I wish I had seen it sooner." "So do I." Silence settled once more. Then Rowan surprised me. He lowered himself onto one knee. The alpha of Shadow Pack kneeled before the woman he had publicly rejected. "I am sorry, Lyra. I will carry this regret for the rest of my life. I ask for nothing. Not another chance. Not your love. Not forgiveness. I only wanted you to hear those words from me." The hall became so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. I believed him. Every word. But belief wasn't enough to erase pain. I walked closer until only a few steps separated us. "You know what finally healed me?" Rowan slowly looked up. "It wasn't time. It wasn't destiny. It wasn't revenge. It was discovering I deserved better than someone who only valued me after losing me." Tears filled his eyes. I continued gently. "I forgive you." His breath caught. But forgiveness isn't the same as returning. A single tear rolled down his face. "I know. I had to say it anyway." He stood slowly. There was sadness in his eyes, but also acceptance. He finally understood. Some choices could never be undone. At that moment, Ronan quietly entered the hall. He hadn't interrupted. He hadn't listened from the doorway. He simply walked in after giving us the time we needed. Rowan looked toward his brother. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Then Rowan nodded once. Thank you. Ronan frowned slightly. For what? For protecting her. Ronan answered calmly. I didn't protect her because she's your former mate. I protected her because she deserved to be protected. Rowan gave a faint smile. I know, and that's why she'll always be safer here than she ever was with me. There was no anger, no jealousy, only painful honesty. That night, Rowan prepared to leave. Before mounting his horse, he turned back one last time. The balcony doors opened above him. I stood there watching, not with longing, not with hatred, simply with peace. He smiled sadly, then rode away into the darkness. I watched until he disappeared beyond the northern gates. Only then did I realize the ache inside my chest was gone, completely gone. Later that evening, I found Ronan standing beside the frozen lake behind the castle. Moonlight shimmered across the ice. You gave him peace, Ronan said quietly. I gave both of us peace. He nodded. I'm proud of you. I smiled. For forgiving him? No. For choosing yourself. Those words settled deep inside me. For so many years, my happiness had depended on someone else's approval. Now, it belonged to me. As we stood together beneath the moon, a strange feeling washed over me. Someone was watching. I turned sharply toward the forest. Only darkness greeted me. Hidden among the trees, a pair of glowing amber eyes disappeared behind the snow-covered pines. A cloaked figure lowered a spyglass. He spoke to someone standing beside him. The girl has refused the first alpha. The second figure smiled coldly. Excellent. She is exactly where we need her. And Alpha Ronan? The first man looked toward the castle. He'll die protecting her. The second figure turned away. Then prepare the assassin. Far above them, the full moon disappeared behind dark clouds. The coming storm had begun. Rowan sincerely apologizes and accepts that he has lost Lyra forever. As Lyra finally lets go of her past, hidden agents of the Obsidian Council begin their next move, sending a deadly assassin to eliminate the last heir of the Moon Queen before she can claim her destiny. Winter arrived quietly. Snow covered the rooftops of the northern pack like a blanket of silver, softening the mountains and turning every pine tree into a sculpture of white. For the first time in years, I looked forward to tomorrow, not because life had become perfect, but because I had stopped waiting for it to fall apart. The castle bustled with excitement. Every winter, the northern pack celebrated the Night of the Silver Moon, a festival honoring the moon goddess and the bonds that held the pack together. The entire kingdom had gathered. Music echoed through the streets. Children ran between market stalls carrying glowing lanterns. Fresh bread, roasted meat, and sweet pastries filled the air with comforting scents. It felt less like a royal celebration, and more like one enormous family reunion. One of the little girls I had treated weeks earlier tugged gently on my sleeve. Lady Lyra? Yes. She held up a silver ribbon. Will you wear this? It's for good luck. I smiled. I thought brave wolves didn't need luck. She grinned. Even brave wolves accept gifts. I laughed. You've become very wise. My grandmother says wisdom comes from listening. I accepted the ribbon and tied it around my wrist. Then I'll treasure it. The little girl hugged me before racing back to her parents. Across the courtyard, Ronan watched with a quiet smile. You've become everyone's favorite. I shook my head. They're simply kind. No. He looked around the square. They trust you. There was a difference. I understood that now. Trust wasn't demanded. It was earned, one act of kindness at a time. As evening settled over the kingdom, hundreds of silver lanterns rose into the night sky. The entire crowd grew silent. High Elder Magnus stepped onto the central platform. For generations, he announced, this festival has reminded us that even the darkest night cannot hide the moon forever. The crowd raised their lanterns. I did the same. For one peaceful moment, everything felt right. Then, my wolf growled.
Low.
Urgent.
Wrong.
I slowly lowered my lantern. Something wasn't right. The air had changed. The wind carried the faint scent of iron. Blood. Before I could react, A sharp whistle cut through the air. An arrow, straight toward my heart. Lyra. Ronan's voice thundered across the courtyard. Everything happened in an instant. He lunged toward me. The arrow struck him instead. The force drove him backward. He hit the stone steps with a sickening sound. The crowd screamed. Panic exploded through the square. More arrows rained from the rooftops. Protect the Alpha. Get everyone inside. Warriors surrounded the civilians while others searched for the attacker. I dropped to my knees beside Ronan. The arrow had pierced just below his shoulder. Blood soaked through his coat. His breathing became shallow. No. I pressed both hands against the wound. No. Stay with me. Ronan forced a weak smile. I've had better evenings. Don't joke. I wasn't. He coughed. Blood stained his lips. Fear unlike anything I had ever known gripped me. This wasn't Rowan. This wasn't the broken mate bond. This was different. The thought of losing Ronan felt unbearable. Castle healers rushed toward us. One examined the arrow. His face turned pale. My lady, the arrowhead is coated with nightshade venom. My heart stopped. Nightshade venom, the deadliest poison ever created for werewolves. It attacked both body and wolf. There isn't enough antidote, another healer whispered. He has minutes.
No.
I looked at them. There has to be something. They lowered their eyes. There wasn't. I grabbed Ronan's hand. His skin already felt cold.
No.
Tears blurred my vision. You promised. He frowned weakly. Promised what? You promised you'd stay. I'll try. Trying isn't enough. My voice broke. I can't lose you. Those words escaped before I realized I had spoken them. Ronan's fading eyes met mine. For the first time, I saw hope in them. Hi, Elder Magnus suddenly appeared beside me. His expression was grave. There is one way. I looked up immediately. What? The ancient healing. My stomach tightened. The forbidden one? He nodded. It requires moon blood. It has never been attempted since Queen Illyria. The cost is unknown. Every healer around us looked horrified. My lady, you could die. You could lose your wolf. You could lose your memories. No one knew. The magic had been forgotten for centuries. I looked back at Ronan. He had never demanded anything from me.
Never pressured me.
Never expected me to become someone else. He had simply believed I deserved kindness. I already knew my answer. What do I do? Magnus looked at me carefully. Are you certain? Yes. There may be no coming back. I know. He took a slow breath. Then begin. The crowd formed a circle around us. Moonlight broke through the clouds. Magnus placed his ancient staff upon the ground. Open your heart, not your hands, your heart. I closed my eyes. Every emotion flooded through me.
Fear.
Gratitude.
Hope. Love.
Not the desperate love that begged to be chosen. The quiet love that chose someone freely. The moon mark on my wrist suddenly blazed with silver light. Gasps echoed through the square. I placed both palms over Ronan's wound. I give what is mine, to protect the life that protected mine. Warmth spread through my body. Then heat. Then unbearable fire. Silver light erupted from my hands. The entire courtyard disappeared beneath its brilliance. I heard nothing, saw nothing, only felt
pain.
Every heartbeat felt as though it might be my last. Memories flashed before my eyes. My parents, the orphan twins, the rejection ceremony, the little girl with the silver ribbon, Ronan smiling as children chased him through the courtyard. Every memory became light. The power flowed into him. Someone screamed. It took me several seconds to realize it was me. The magic consumed everything. The moon mark expanded across my arm like flowing silver vines. Ancient symbols appeared beneath my skin. The wind roared. Every lantern in the kingdom ignited at once. The moon overhead shone brighter than anyone had ever seen. Then, silence. The light vanished. I collapsed forward. Strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. Ronan. He was standing. His wound had completely disappeared. The arrow lay broken on the stone floor. Even the poison had vanished. The crowd stared in stunned silence. One by one, every warrior dropped to one knee. Not for Ronan. For me. My lady. One elderly healer whispered through tears. I've never witnessed anything like this. Magnus slowly approached. His eyes remained fixed on my glowing arm. The moon mark. I looked down.
It had changed.
The simple crescent moon was gone. Now it formed a complete circle surrounding a radiant wolf. Tiny silver stars shimmered around it. It has awakened, Magnus breathed. The mark has entered its second form. The celebration had ended. The castle became strangely quiet. Ronan refused to leave my side. You should rest, I murmured. So should you. I'm fine. You nearly fainted walking here. I recovered. He raised an eyebrow. Barely. I smiled weakly. You noticed. I notice everything about you. The words hung between us. Neither of us looked away. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Later that night, after everyone had finally gone to sleep, I stood alone on the balcony. The moon mark still glowed faintly beneath my sleeve. I couldn't stop staring at it. What had I become? A healer? A queen? Something in between? The balcony door creaked open. Magnus stepped outside. You've awakened powers that have slept for centuries. I never wanted power. I know. He smiled gently. Which is exactly why the moon goddess trusted you with it. Before I could answer, a raven landed on the balcony railing. Its leg carried a black ribbon sealed with dark wax. Magnus removed the message. His face immediately lost all color. What is it? I asked. He handed me the letter. Only 6 words were written across the page. The first attempt has failed. The next one won't. There was no signature. Only the symbol of a black crescent moon wrapped around a serpent. The mark of the Obsidian Council. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the true enemy smiled. The hunt had only just begun. Ronan survives only because Lyra uses the long-forbidden healing magic of the first Moon Queen, awakening the second form of the moon mark. But the failed assassination was merely the Obsidian Council's opening move, and their next attack will be far more devastating. I didn't sleep. The letter from the Obsidian Council remained on the table beside my bed, its black wax seal seeming darker each time I looked at it. The first attempt has failed. The next one won't. For the first time since arriving in the Northern Pack, I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for everyone around me. Anyone who stood beside me had become a target. The following morning, the castle was unusually quiet. Normally, laughter filled the halls before sunrise. Children chased each other through the corridors. Servants greeted one another with warm smiles. Today, everyone whispered. Extra guards stood at every entrance. Archers watched from every tower. No one wanted to admit it aloud. The festival attack had shaken the kingdom. Ronan found me in the infirmary arranging fresh herbs. You should be resting. I've rested enough. You nearly exhausted your life force. I smiled faintly. And yet here I am. He folded his arms. I've learned something about healers. What? They're terrible patients. I laughed. And alphas are impossibly stubborn. I won't argue with that. For a brief moment, the tension eased. Then Magnus entered. His expression erased every trace of comfort. We've found something. A council meeting was called immediately. Inside the ancient war room stood Ronan, Magnus, the Northern Pack's commanders, and unexpectedly, Rowan. He had returned. Not as a rival, as an ally. The moment our eyes met, he inclined his head respectfully. No assumptions. No expectations. Only respect. I returned the gesture. Nothing more. Magnus placed several documents across the round stone table. Our scouts captured a courier last night. What was he carrying? Ronan asked. These. He unfolded a bundle of coded letters. Most contained meaningless symbols. One had already been translated. Magnus read it aloud. The Shadow Alpha has served his purpose. The Moon Heir now trusts the Northern Alpha. Proceed to Phase 2. Silence filled the room. Rowan's jaw tightened. So, I was never the true objective. Magnus nodded.
No.
You were a weapon. I stared at the letter. They manipulated Rowan, so I would leave Shadowpact. Ronan slowly looked toward me. Which led you here? A chill ran down my spine. They wanted me in the north. But why? No one answered. Because no one knew. Rowan finally spoke. There is one person who might. Everyone looked toward him. Celine. By sunset, Shadowpact guards had escorted Celine to the northern castle under heavy guard. She entered the council chamber with her usual confidence. Even in chains, she smiled. You've all gone to an awful lot of trouble. Rowan remained expressionless. I want the truth. You had it.
No.
He stepped closer. I had your version. Her smile faded slightly. You've changed. No. I finally opened my eyes. Magnus placed the translated letter before her. Explain this. Celine glanced at it once, then sighed. So, you finally found them? Them? Rowan asked. The Obsidian Council. She laughed quietly. I wondered how long it would take. You forged the reports. Yes. You bribed witnesses. Yes. You altered the royal records. Yes. You manipulated me into rejecting Lyra. She looked directly at Rowan. Yes. Her voice carried no shame, no regret, only pride. I stepped forward. Why? She studied me for a long moment. You really don't know? I shook my head. Celine smiled bitterly. Because you were never supposed to exist. The room fell silent. You were born with the Moon Queen's blood. The council learned about your family before you were even born. They ordered your bloodline erased. My heart pounded. My parents were murdered. The words struck like a physical blow. I stumbled backward. No, they died in an accident. Celine laughed. That's what everyone was told. Ronan caught my arm before I lost my balance. Magnus closed his eyes. He already knew. Tears blurred my vision. You knew. Magnus nodded slowly. I suspected. I couldn't prove it. You never told me. Because I feared the council still had spies everywhere. I couldn't speak. Everything I believed about my childhood was collapsing. Rowan turned back toward Celine. Why help them? Her confident smile finally disappeared. You think I mattered to them? I was just another pawn. They promised me the Luna title. They promised me power. They promised me a future. She laughed bitterly. I was foolish enough to believe them. So, who leads the council? Ronan demanded. For the first time, fear crossed Celine's face. I don't know his real name. What do you mean? No one does. He never removes his mask. He calls himself. The doors exploded inward. A deafening blast shook the chamber. Smoke filled the room. Warriors drew their swords. From the swirling gray mist, a dozen black-cloaked assassins emerged. Each wore the same silver serpent insignia. The Obsidian Council had come. Protect Lyra, Ronan shouted. Steel clashed. The chamber erupted into chaos. One assassin lunged toward me. Before he reached me, Rowan intercepted him. Their swords collided with a shower of sparks. Another attacker rushed Ronan. Magnus raised a staff, sending a burst of silver light across the room. The battle spread through every corner of the council hall.
Then,
The assassins suddenly stopped fighting. They stepped aside, making room. Heavy footsteps echoed through the smoke. A tall figure entered slowly. Black armor, silver mask, long dark cloak. The room seemed colder with every step he took. Even the assassins lowered their heads. He carried no visible weapon. Yet every instinct inside me screamed that he was the most dangerous person I had ever seen. He stopped in the center of the chamber. Then, he looked directly at me. So,
his voice was calm.
the last moon heir lives. I forced myself to stand straight. Who are you? He smiled beneath the silver mask. I've had many names, but history remembers only one. He spread his arms. I am the keeper of the forgotten throne. Magnus' face drained of color. It can't be. The masked man laughed softly. Oh, it can. He slowly removed one glove. On his wrist, burned into his skin, was a twisted version of the moon mark, black instead of silver. Magnus whispered in horror, "The shadow mark." The masked man inclined his head. "Very good. You still remember." He looked toward me once more. "The moon goddess chose your ancestor, but she rejected mine." There was centuries of hatred in his voice. "My family served the first moon queen. When the kingdom united, they expected equality. They received exile." His eyes burned with resentment. "For 500 years. We waited. We planned. We erased every heir. Until only you remained." Ronan stepped protectively in front of me. "You'll never touch her." The masked man chuckled. "I already have." Everyone froze. "What do you mean?" Rowan demanded. The masked leader looked at him. "You rejected her." He looked at Ronan. "You welcomed her." He looked back at me. "And exactly as we predicted, you awakened the moon throne." A horrifying realization swept through the room. Everything had been orchestrated. Every lie, every betrayal, every step.
To force the prophecy forward. Why?
I whispered. "Because only a fully awakened moon heir can open the moon temple." He smiled beneath the mask. "And only inside the temple can I claim the power that should have belonged to my bloodline." The room fell silent. He hadn't wanted me dead. Not yet. He needed me alive. Until I opened the ancient temple. He slowly stepped backward. "This meeting is over." Ronan raised his sword. "You're not leaving." The masked man laughed. "Oh, I already have." He snapped his fingers. The chamber filled with blinding smoke. By the time it cleared, every assassin was gone. Only one thing remained behind. A black banner bearing the serpent crest, pinned to the stone wall with a silver dagger. Across it, written in crimson ink, were 5 chilling words. "Prepare for the final war." No one spoke. No one moved. Because every person in that room understood the truth. The Obsidian Council had never been hiding from history. They had been writing it from the shadows. And now, they were ready to step into the light. Celine confesses that she framed Lyra and manipulated Rowan, but reveals she was only a pawn of the Obsidian Council. The masked council leader finally appears, exposing that every tragedy, including Rowan's rejection, was part of a centuries-old plan to awaken Lyra's power and unlock the ancient Moon Temple. The final war is about to begin. The council chamber remained silent long after the masked leader disappeared. The black banner still hung from the stone wall. Its serpent emblem seemed to mock us. "Prepare for the final war." The words echoed through my mind. I had spent my life trying to save lives. Now an entire kingdom stood on the edge of war because of my bloodline. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, Rowan broke the silence. "They'll attack soon." Ronan nodded. "They've already shown us they aren't afraid to strike inside our walls." Magnus rested both hands on his staff. "They won't wait long. The Moon Temple awakens during the next full moon. That's only 5 days away." Every face in the room grew grim. 5 days. That was all we had. Within hours, the northern castle transformed. The festival decorations disappeared. Training fields filled with warriors. Blacksmiths worked through the night forging weapons. Messengers rode in every direction, calling allies to defend the kingdom. The laughter that had once filled the castle was replaced by the sound of steel. I stood in the infirmary preparing herbs. Boxes of bandages covered every table. Healing potions lined the shelves. I hated how familiar this felt. Preparing for battle always meant preparing for loss. One of the younger healers looked at me nervously. "Lady Lyra, do you think we'll win?" I paused, then smiled gently. "I think we'll fight for one another. Sometimes that's where victory begins." She nodded, though fear still lingered in her eyes. By sunset, the first allied packs arrived. Warriors filled the courtyard. Some had traveled for days through snow-covered mountains. Others came from distant forests. They all carried the same purpose: protect the moon heir, protect the future. To my surprise, the Shadow Pack marched through the northern gates as well. Rowan rode at the front, His warriors stopped beside Ronan's. For generations, the two packs had stood as rivals.
Now,
They stood shoulder to shoulder, not because the past had disappeared, because the future mattered more. That evening, Ronan and Rowan met inside the war room. Maps covered the long stone table. Enemy movements had been marked in red, supply routes in blue, guard towers in silver. I remained near the doorway with Magnus. The discussion began calmly. It didn't stay that way. They'll come through the eastern pass, Rowan said. It's the fastest route. Ronan shook his head. Too obvious. That's exactly why they'll use it.
no.
They'll expect us to think that. Rowan folded his arms. You're underestimating them. And you're overcomplicating it. The room grew tense. Old habits resurfaced. Years of rivalry couldn't disappear overnight. One commander quietly whispered to another. They're arguing again. I closed my eyes. Not now. Please.
Not now.
Rowan slammed his hand onto the table. If you'd stop trying to prove you're smarter. Ronan immediately answered. If you'd stop believing every battle can be won by charging straight ahead. The argument escalated. Voices rose. Commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Neither brother seemed willing to step back. Finally, I walked into the center of the room. Enough. Both alphas fell silent. Everyone turned toward me. I looked first at Rowan. You spent years carrying every burden alone. Then at Ronan. You spend so much time protecting others that you forget they can protect you too. I looked at both of them. The council wants this. They want brothers divided. They've been using your pride against you for years. Neither man spoke. I continued quietly. You don't have to trust each other's decisions. But you must trust each other's hearts. Silence filled the room. Then, Rowan slowly exhaled. He's right. Ronan blinked. You mean she's right? A faint smile crossed Rowan's face. I know. He looked at his brother. I've spent too many years trying to be the better alpha. Ronan's expression softened. I spent just as many trying to prove I didn't live in your shadow. For the first time, they truly looked at one another. Not as rivals. As brothers. Rowan extended his hand. No more competing. Ronan stared at it for a moment, then firmly clasped it. No more. The commanders quietly applauded. Not because every wound had healed, but because healing had finally begun. The following morning, scouts returned with urgent news. The enemy is moving. How many? Thousands. The room fell silent. The Obsidian Council had revealed its true strength. Not merely assassins. An army. The first attack came before noon. Dark banners appeared across the snowy hills. War horns echoed through the valley. The enemy advanced like a black tide. Ronan drew his sword. Open the gates. Rowan stepped beside him. Shadow Pack. Northern warriors answered. For the north, both armies charged together. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against steel. Wolves leaped through clouds of snow. The sound of battle rolled across the mountains. I remained behind the front lines with the healers. Injured warriors arrived every minute. Broken bones. Deep wounds. Poisoned arrows. My hands never stopped moving. Neither did my heart. Every life mattered. Every heartbeat mattered. Hours passed. Neither side gained ground. Then, a wounded scout stumbled into the medical tent. My lady. They've broken through the western wall. My blood ran cold. The children. They've been evacuated. I grabbed my healer's cloak. I'm going. Magnus intercepted me. It's too dangerous. They need healers. So do you. I met his eyes. If I hide while others suffer, I don't deserve the gifts I've been given. He hesitated, then stepped aside. The western courtyard had become a battlefield. Smoke filled the air. Buildings burned. Warriors fought desperately to protect civilians. I rushed toward an injured mother shielding her son. As I healed them, something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too deliberate. My wolf growled. A trap. Before I could react, a black crystal exploded beside me. Silver chains of light shot from the ground. They wrapped around my wrists, my ankles, my waist. Ancient runes glowed across the chains. Moon magic. I couldn't break them. No. Ronan's roar echoed across the battlefield. He fought toward me. Dozens of enemy soldiers blocked his path. Rowan charged from the opposite side. Together, the brothers carved through the enemy ranks. Closer, closer, almost there. The masked leader appeared atop the broken castle wall. He raised one hand.
Now.
The chains surrounding me blazed with black light. The ground beneath my feet shattered. A massive circle of ancient symbols opened beneath me. Magnus shouted from across the battlefield. The temple gate. I looked down. The earth itself had become a doorway. Ronan reached for me. Lyra. Our fingertips almost touched. Almost. The chains pulled me downward. I slipped beneath the glowing circle. The last thing I saw was Ronan diving after me, and Rowan reaching desperately from the other side. Then, darkness swallowed everything. The battlefield vanished. The voices disappeared. The world became silent. When I finally opened my eyes, I was lying on smooth white stone. Ancient pillars surrounded me. Moonlight streamed through a ceiling that seemed impossibly high. Strange symbols glowed across the floor. The air itself felt ancient,
Sacred.
untouched by time. I slowly pushed myself upright. There was only one thought in my mind. The Moon Temple. The council had brought me exactly where they wanted me. Just as Rowan and Ronan finally reconcile and fight together as true brothers, the Obsidian Council springs its trap. Lyra is captured by ancient moon magic and dragged into the long-hidden Moon Temple, where the final stage of the Council's centuries-old plan is about to unfold. The silence inside the Moon Temple felt alive. Not empty. Waiting. I slowly pushed myself to my feet, my footsteps echoing across a floor carved from white stone that shimmered like moonlight reflected on water. Towering pillars stretched toward a ceiling I couldn't even see. Silver vines climbed each column, blooming with flowers that should have withered centuries ago. The air carried the scent of jasmine. No dust. No decay. As though the temple had been patiently waiting for one person.
Me.
I turned in a slow circle. There were no guards. No chains. No sign of the Obsidian Council. Only silence. Is anyone here? My voice echoed through the vast chamber. No answer. I took another cautious step. The moon mark on my wrist began glowing softly. The light spread across the floor beneath my feet. Ancient symbols awakened one after another, forming a winding path deeper into the temple. It was inviting me forward. I hesitated, then followed. The passage opened into an enormous circular hall. At its center stood a crystal pool, so still it looked like polished glass. Above it floated a single silver flame. It burned without heat, without smoke. As I approached the water, I saw my reflection. Then,
It changed.
instead of my own face, I saw a little girl, 7 years old. Her clothes were worn. Her hands were scraped from gathering herbs. She sat alone beneath a tree, crying quietly.
Me.
I remembered that day. The other children had refused to play with me because I wasn't born into a noble bloodline. I had smiled, so no one would know how much it hurt. The reflection shifted again. I saw myself years later, staying awake for 3 nights to care for sick warriors. No one thanked me. No one even remembered my name. Then another memory. The rejection ceremony. Rowan standing before thousands. Breaking our bond. Watching my heart shatter. Tears filled my eyes. Why are you showing me this? A gentle voice answered from behind me. Because you've spent your life believing those moments defined you. I turned. A woman stood at the edge of the pool. She wore flowing white robes embroidered with silver threads. A delicate crown rested upon her dark hair. Golden eyes. The same eyes from the ancient portrait. Queen Illyria.
Or
Something more. You. She smiled warmly. I've been waiting for you, Lyra. Are you the first Moon Queen? I was. Long ago. She stepped closer. Now I am simply a memory entrusted with the Moon Goddess's will. I struggled to find words. I don't understand. You will. She gently waved her hand across the crystal pool. The memories disappeared. New images formed.
I saw Rowan as a young boy.
Training long after everyone else had gone home. Desperate to become the perfect alpha. Terrified of disappointing his father. Then I saw Ronan. Standing alone outside the training grounds. Watching his older brother receive endless praise. Quietly convincing himself he would always be second. The images faded. You've seen only your own pain, Lyra said softly. But every heart carries unseen wounds. I looked down. I know Rowan suffered. I know Ronan did too. Then why does this still hurt so much? She smiled gently. Because forgiveness doesn't erase scars. It simply stops them from controlling tomorrow. The pool shimmered once more. This time, I saw two glowing threads. One silver, one golden. The silver thread stretched toward Rowan. It was frayed.
Broken.
The golden thread connected me to Ronan. It pulsed gently with warmth. Neither thread looked like chains. They looked chosen. I thought the moon goddess chose mates. The moon goddess offers possibilities. Lyra corrected me kindly. She does not imprison hearts. I frowned. But everyone says fated mates are destiny. They are. She nodded. But destiny is an invitation, not a prison. I stared at the glowing threads. What if someone rejects destiny? They remain free. And the other person? They remain free as well. I blinked. Then why did everyone believe Rowan's rejection ended my future? Because people often confuse tradition with truth. Lyra stepped closer. Listen carefully, Lyra. Her voice became more serious. The strongest bond in this world is not created by fate. It is created by choice. You and Rowan were given an opportunity. It was broken. You and Ronan were given another. But neither bond defines who you are. I whispered. Then what does? She smiled. The choices you make when no one is forcing you. A deep rumble shook the temple. The walls trembled. Lyra looked toward the ceiling. They're here. The council? She nodded. They're opening the outer gates. Fear returned instantly. I have to leave. You will. But first, she extended her hand. A silver crown appeared above her palm. It looked identical to the one in the portrait. I can't accept that. I'm not asking you to. The crown dissolved into light. The light entered my moon mark. Warmth spread through my entire body. This is not a crown of authority. Lyra said. It is a reminder. Of what? That power exists to protect. Never to rule. The moon mark transformed again. The silver circle surrounding the wolf expanded. Tiny stars connected into the shape of a crown. Its light became calm.
Steady.
No longer wild. Suddenly, the temple doors exploded open. A violent shockwave rushed through the hall. The masked leader entered, surrounded by black-cloaked warriors. Behind him, bound in silver chains, were Rowan and Ronan. No, I ran toward them. The masked leader raised one hand. Invisible force stopped me where I stood. So, he said calmly, the temple accepts you. I glared at him. It will never accept you. He laughed. We shall see. He walked to the center of the chamber. The moon temple recognizes only the last heir. Open the heart gate. I won't. His voice hardened. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice. For the first time, his calm expression faltered. He motioned toward Rowan. A blade appeared at Rowan's throat. Open it.
No.
The blade moved closer. Ronan shouted. Don't listen to him. Another blade appeared against Ronan's neck. My heart raced. The masked leader smiled. Choose. Open the gate. Or watch them die. Every instinct screamed at me to surrender. To save them. But then, I remembered Lyra's words. The strongest bond is created by choice. The council had spent centuries forcing choices, manipulating hearts, creating fear. If I acted out of fear now, they would win. I looked directly at the masked leader. You still don't understand. His smile faded. What? The moon temple doesn't answer to fear. It answers to love. He laughed. Love. You believe that childish fantasy still matters? I smiled for the first time since entering the temple. It always has. I closed my eyes. Instead of reaching for power, I reached for compassion. For every child I had healed, every wounded warrior, every life worth protecting. The moon mark blazed brighter than ever before. The temple responded, not with violence, with light. Pure silver light flooded every corner of the sanctuary. The chains binding Rowan and Ronan shattered instantly. The masked leader staggered backward. What have you done? I opened my eyes. I chose. The temple floor began to open. Ancient stairs rose from beneath the crystal pool. Far below, a radiant chamber pulsed with divine light. Illyria's voice echoed softly around us. The final trial begins. The masked leader smiled again. So be it. He drew a black sword. Around us, warriors prepared for battle. The temple itself had chosen the battlefield, and there would be no escape. Inside the Moon Temple, Lyra learns that true mates are united not by destiny alone, but by love and free choice. Rejecting the Council's manipulation, she awakens the temple through compassion instead of fear, freeing Rowan and Ronan. As the temple reveals its sacred inner chamber, the final battle for the future of every pack is about to begin. The ancient stairs continued rising from beneath the crystal pool. Each stone step shimmered with silver light, as though the Moon Temple itself had awakened after centuries of silence. No one moved, not even the Obsidian Council. For one brief moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Then the masked leader raised his black sword. Kill them. His command echoed through the temple. The silence shattered. The council warriors charged. Their black cloaks swept across the white marble floor like a tide of darkness. At the same instant, Rowan and Ronan stepped forward. Not separately, together. Their swords rose in perfect unison. Steel met steel. The temple exploded into chaos. Ronan blocked the first assassin before he could reach me. Rowan intercepted another from my left. Back to back. The brothers fought with a rhythm that surprised even them. Years of training together had never truly disappeared. Every movement complemented the other. Where Rowan struck with strength, Ronan answered with speed. Where Ronan created an opening, Rowan finished the attack. They were no longer competing. They were protecting. Magnus stood behind us, his staff glowing brightly. Ancient runes spread across the temple floor. Silver barriers rose around the injured. Healers, Magnus called. Protect the wounded. I immediately joined the healers. Warriors arrived one after another.
Cuts.
Broken ribs.
Poison blades.
My hands glowed continuously. Every life I saved strengthened my resolve. The council believed power came from conquest. The moon goddess had shown me something different. Real strength preserved life. It did not destroy it. A deafening roar shook the temple. The masked leader slammed his sword into the floor. Dark energy spread through the marble like cracks across ice. The silver light of the temple dimmed. One by one, ancient statues lining the walls began to move. Stone wolves.
Dozens of them.
Their eyes glowed black. The temple guardians had been corrupted. They're possessed. Magnus shouted. Don't destroy them. They're sacred. Easier said than done. The stone wolves charged without hesitation. One leaped toward a group of young healers. Before I could move, Rowan threw himself into its path. His sword deflected the massive creature. The impact sent him crashing into a pillar. Another guardian lunged from behind. Ronan reached him just in time. The brothers fought side by side, protecting each other without a single word. Months ago, that would have been impossible. The masked leader watched with amusement. How touching. Brothers united. He slowly removed his silver mask. For the first time, we saw his face. He looked older than I expected. Long silver hair framed sharp features marked by countless scars. But his eyes held centuries of bitterness. I was born as Cashin. Magnus gasped. No, that's impossible. Cashin smiled coldly. You remember me. Magnus' expression turned sorrowful. I thought you died. I should have. Cashin answered. But hatred kept me alive. He raised his twisted moon mark. My family served Queen Lyra with absolute loyalty. When peace came, we expected honor. Instead, we were banished for embracing forbidden magic. His voice echoed through the temple. The moon goddess forgave our mistakes. Lyra did not. Lyra's gentle voice filled the chamber. That is not the truth. Everyone froze. A silver figure appeared above the crystal pool. Queen Lyra. Her spirit shone like moonlight. She looked at Cashin with sadness. I begged you to abandon the darkness. I offered you mercy. Cashin's face twisted with rage. You offered humiliation. I offered life. You chose revenge. For the first time, I saw something unexpected, not evil.
Pain.
Cashin had allowed centuries of grief to become hatred, and hatred had consumed everything else. He roared in fury. Dark energy exploded from his body. The temple shook violently. The corrupted stone wolves became even larger. The ceiling cracked. Massive pieces of marble crashed to the floor. The temple was collapsing. Lyra, Ronan called. The heart chamber? I looked toward the glowing staircase. At its summit stood a circular platform. Above it floated a radiant crystal, the heart of the moon. Without understanding how, I knew that crystal sustained the temple. If Cashin reached it, everything would be lost. I ran. Council warriors blocked my path.
Before they could reach me,
Rowan stepped in front of them. Go! He held off 3 enemies at once. I kept running. Another assassin appeared. Ronan intercepted him. I'll clear the way. I looked back only once. The brothers nodded.
neither asked for thanks.
They simply trusted me to keep moving. I reached the heart chamber. The glowing crystal hovered above an ancient altar. Its light pulsed like a heartbeat.
Warm.
Peaceful.
Alive.
Then Cashin landed beside me. He had abandoned the battle entirely. His eyes remained fixed on the crystal. 500 years. He whispered, I've waited 500 years. He extended his hand. Darkness reached toward the crystal. The light immediately resisted. It refuses you, I said. It will obey.
No.
It serves no one. Cashin laughed bitterly. Naive child. Power always serves someone. I shook my head.
No.
Power reveals who someone truly is. He attacked. His black sword swept toward me. I barely avoided the strike. The blade shattered part of the altar. The crystal flickered. The temple groaned. Outside the chamber, the battle continued.
Inside.
Everything depended on one choice. Cashin struck again. 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 I refused to fight him with hatred. Instead, I remembered every person who had changed my life. The little girl with the silver ribbon. The elderly warrior. The orphan twins. Magnus. Rowan's apology. Ronan's unwavering kindness. Every act of compassion became strength. The moon mark blazed brighter than ever before. The heart of the moon answered. Silver light surrounded me. Not as armor. As hope. Cashin screamed. No! He unleashed every ounce of dark magic he possessed. Black energy collided with silver light. The impact shook the entire temple. Neither force gained ground. Then, I understood. This battle wasn't won by overpowering darkness. It was won by refusing to become like it. I lowered my hands. Cashin looked confused. Why aren't you fighting? Because you've been fighting alone for 500 years. He froze. You lost your family. You lost your future. You even lost yourself. His grip on the sword weakened. I know what it's like to lose everything. I also know revenge never gives it back. For one heartbeat, his eyes filled with uncertainty. The darkness around him flickered. Then the Obsidian Council soldiers shouted from below. Our leader. Take the crystal. Cashin looked toward them. Hatred returned. He raised his sword one final time. If I cannot have it, no one will. He drove the blade toward the heart of the moon. No. Rowan and Ronan reached the chamber together. Both brothers leaped forward. Their swords crossed before the crystal. They stopped Cashin's strike together. The force shattered all 3 blades. Time seemed to stand still. The heart of the moon released a wave of brilliant silver light. It swept through the entire temple. The darkness vanished. The corrupted stone wolves became still once more. The council warriors collapsed as their dark magic dissolved. Cashin fell to his knees. His twisted moon mark cracked, then slowly disappeared. He looked at Lyra's spirit. For the first time in centuries, the anger left his face. Only exhaustion remained. I was so tired. Lyra knelt before him. I know. A single tear rolled down Cashin's cheek. I'm sorry. The silver light gently surrounded him. His body dissolved into countless glowing particles, carried upward like falling stars.
Gone.
Not destroyed. Finally, at peace. The temple became silent. Warm sunlight streamed through the cracks above. The battle was over. The Obsidian Council surrendered. Warriors lowered their weapons. The centuries-old war had finally ended. I looked at Rowan, then at Ronan. Both smiled. Not because they had won, because everyone who could be saved
Had been saved.
almost. Then the temple rumbled one last time. Magnus looked upward in alarm. The temple is collapsing. We had won the battle. Now we had to escape. Cashin and the Obsidian Council are defeated after Lyra proves that compassion is stronger than vengeance. As peace finally returns, the ancient moon temple begins to collapse around them, forcing everyone into one final race against time before the sacred sanctuary is lost forever. The moon temple groaned around us. Ancient pillars cracked. Chunks of white stone crashed onto the marble floor. The sacred sanctuary that had stood untouched for 5 centuries was finally completing its purpose. Its story was ending, so ours could begin. Everyone move. Ronan's voice echoed through the chamber. Northern warriors quickly helped the wounded. Shadow Pack warriors carried those too weak to walk. No one asked which pack anyone belonged to anymore. There were no rivals, only survivors. A massive pillar collapsed across the main passage. Dust exploded into the air. One frightened young healer froze in the middle of the corridor. Before anyone else could react, Rowan sprinted forward. He pushed the healer to safety just as the pillar crashed behind them. The impact threw him to the ground. Ronan rushed over and pulled his brother to his feet. You always did have terrible timing.
Rowan coughed, then laughed.
And you always complained too much. For the first time in years, the brothers laughed together. Not as alphas, simply as brothers. We finally reached the temple entrance. As the last warrior crossed the threshold, a brilliant silver light filled the chamber behind us. I turned back one last time. Queen Lyra stood within the fading light. She smiled peacefully. Our eyes met. No words were spoken. None were needed. She slowly placed one hand over her heart. I did the same. Then, the temple disappeared. The mountainside settled into silence, as if it had never existed at all. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Weeks passed. Winter slowly surrendered to spring. The scars of war remained. Broken homes. Empty chairs at family tables. Names spoken with quiet sorrow. But alongside grief, hope began to grow. The people rebuilt together. Northern wolves repaired shadow villages. Shadow craftsmen rebuilt northern watchtowers. No one kept count of who helped whom. They simply helped. Selene remained imprisoned while the surviving members of the Obsidian Council stood trial before the United Elders. Unlike the Council, justice would not be driven by revenge. Every victim deserved truth. Every crime deserved accountability. When Selene was brought before the court, she lowered her head. Gone was the proud noblewoman who believed power could be stolen. She looked tired, broken. I don't ask for mercy, she said quietly. I only ask that my mistakes end with me. The elders sentenced her to spend the rest of her life restoring the villages destroyed by the council. Not in chains, in service. Perhaps, one day, she would understand the value of the compassion she had once rejected. One afternoon, Rowan asked if we could speak alone. We met beneath the same silver rose arch where I had first begun to heal. He smiled faintly. You look happy. I'm glad. For a moment, Neither of us spoke. Then he reached into his pocket. He held out something wrapped in white cloth. The bracelet. I unfolded it carefully. My old Luna bracelet. The one I had removed on the day of the rejection. Rowan looked at it for a long moment. I had it repaired. It deserved better than to be left on the ground. I smiled softly. So did I. He nodded. You did. I closed his fingers gently around the bracelet. I think someone else will wear it someday. You've finally let go. I have. He slipped the bracelet back into his pocket. Thank you for forgiving me. I already did. I know. He smiled. But hearing it again reminds me to become the man who deserved it. Before leaving, Rowan stopped. I've accepted an invitation to help rebuild the Southern Territories. There's a great deal of work to do. You'll be a good leader. I hope so. He laughed quietly. I've finally learned that leading begins with listening. Then he walked away. This time, neither of us looked back. There was nothing left unfinished between us. A month later, representatives from every allied pack gathered in the Valley of the Moon. The ancient throne had been moved from the northern castle to the center of the valley. Thousands filled the surrounding hills. Not for a coronation, for a promise. A promise that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. High Elder Magnus stepped onto the stone platform. For centuries, he declared, our kingdoms were divided by pride, fear, and lies. He looked toward the gathered packs. Today, we choose another path. He turned toward me. Lyra Ashwood. I slowly walked forward, not because prophecy demanded it,
Because I had chosen to.
The moon throne glowed softly as I approached. This time,
It didn't overwhelm me.
it simply welcomed me. Magnus lifted a simple silver crown. No jewels. No symbols of conquest. Only a crescent moon resting above intertwined branches. The crown does not make a queen. It reminds a queen whom she serves. He placed it gently upon my head. The moon mark shimmered. Silver light spread across the valley. Not blinding.
Warm.
Peaceful. Across the gathered crowd, every wolf felt it. Not power. Belonging. Magnus then turned toward Ronan. Alpha Ronan Blackthorn. Ronan stepped beside me. You stood beside her without demanding her heart. You protected her freedom before asking for her trust. You have proven that true strength begins with respect. Magnus smiled. Will you stand beside Queen Lyra not as her ruler, but as her equal? Ronan looked at me. Not at the crown. Not at the crowd. Only at me. If she will have me. I laughed softly. I've already made my choice. I reached for his hand. He took mine. The moment our fingers intertwined, the moon mark glowed once more. A second silver mark briefly appeared on Ronan's wrist before fading into a simple crescent. The crowd erupted into cheers. Not because destiny had spoken, because two hearts had freely chosen one another. That evening, the celebration continued long after sunset. Children from both packs played together beneath strings of silver lanterns. The little girl who had once given me a ribbon now proudly declared herself captain of an imaginary wolf patrol. The elderly warrior challenged Rowan to a game of chess and lost spectacularly. Laughter echoed through the valley. No fear. No hatred. Only life. Several months later, spring flowers covered the castle gardens. I walked beside Ronan along a winding stone path overlooking the mountains. The same mountains that had once separated two kingdoms. Now they protected one. Children ran across the grass behind us. Shadow Pack pups chased Northern Pack pups in endless circles, arguing over who was faster. None of them cared where anyone had been born.
To them.
They were simply friends. Ronan gently slipped his hand into mine. What are you thinking about? I smiled toward the rising moon. The day everything fell apart. The rejection? I nodded. I thought my life had ended. And now? I looked around. The United Kingdom. The castle filled with laughter. The people rebuilding together. The man beside me who had never tried to change who I was. I smiled. Now I know it was only the beginning. Ronan squeezed my hand. You found your path. I shook my head. We found it. I looked up as the full moon rose over the United Kingdom. Its silver light bathed the valleys, forests, and castles that had once been divided. For the first time in generations, there were no battle horns, no walls between packs, only peace. I closed my eyes and whispered the words my heart had carried through every trial. The night I believed my life had ended was the night it truly began. Fate opened the door, but love showed me which path to take. Above us, the moon shone brighter than ever, not as a symbol of destiny, but as a reminder that the greatest bonds are never forced. They are chosen, and that choice changed everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling us your favorite moment. Your support helps bring more unforgettable Alpha and Luna stories to life. Until next time, may every ending lead you to a beautiful new beginning.